minute, for she lingered to answer Hannah's eager inquiry, "Will Miss Amy ride in her coupé, and use all the lovely silver dishes that's stored away over yonder?" "Shouldn't wonder if she drove 6 white horses, ate of golden plate, and wore diamonds and point lace every day. Teddy thinks nothing too good for her," returned Joe with infinite satisfaction. "No more there is. Will you have hash or fish balls for breakfast?" asked Hannah, who wisely mingled poetry and prose. "I don't care," and Joe shut the door, feeling that food was an uncongenial topic just then. She stood a minute looking at the party vanishing above, and as Amy's short black legs toiled up the last stair, a sudden sense of loneliness came over her so strongly that she looked about her with dim eyes, as if to find something to lean upon, for even Teddy had deserted her. If she had known what birthday gift was coming every minute nearer and nearer, she would not have said to herself, "I'll weep a little weep when I go to bed. It won't do to be dismal now." Then she drew her hand over her eyes, for one of her boyish habits was never to know where her handkerchief was, and had just managed to call up a smile when there came a knock at the porch door. She opened with hospitable haste, and stared as if another ghost had come to surprise her, for there stood a tall, bearded gentleman, beaming on her from the darkness like a midnight sun. "Oh, Mr. Barr, I'm so glad to see you!" cried Joe with a clutch, as if she feared the night would swallow him up before she could get him in. "And I to see Miss March. But now you have a party," and the Professor paused, as the sound of voices and the tap of dancing feet came down to them. "No, we haven't, only the family. My sister and friends have just come home, and we are all very happy. Come in and make one of us." Though a very social man, I think Mr. Barr would have gone decorously away, and come again another day. But how could he, when Joe shut the door behind him and bereft him of his hat? Perhaps her face had something to do with it, for she forgot to hide her joy at seeing him, and showed it with a frankness that proved irresistible to the solitary man, whose welcome far exceeded his boldest hopes. "If I shall not be Monsieur de Dreux, I will so gladly see them all. You have been ill, my friend?" He put the question abruptly, for, as Joe hung up his coat, the light fell on her face and he saw the change in it. "Not ill, but tired and sorrowful. We have had trouble since I saw you last." "Ah, yes, I know. My heart was sore for you when I heard that." And he shook her hands again with such a sympathetic face that Joe felt as if no comfort could equal the look of the kind eyes, the grasp of the big warm hand. "Father, mother, this is my friend, Professor Barr," she said with a face and tone of such irrepressible pride and pleasure that she might as well have blown a trumpet and opened the door with a flourish. If the stranger had any doubts about his reception, they were set at rest in a minute by the cordial welcome he received. Every one greeted him kindly, for Joe's sake at first, but very soon they liked him for his own. They could not help it, for he carried the talisman that opens all hearts, and these simple people warmed to him at once, feeling even more friendly because he was poor, for poverty enriches those who live above it, and is a sure passport to truly hospitable spirits. Mr. Barr sat looking about him with the air of a traveler who knocks at a strange door, and when it opens finds himself at home. The children went to him like bees to a honey pot, and establishing themselves on each knee, proceeded to captivate him by rifling his pockets, pulling his beard, and investigating his watch with juvenile audacity. The women telegraphed their approval to one another, and Mr. March, feeling that he had a kindred spirit, opened his choicest store for the guests' benefit, while silent John listened and enjoyed the talk, but said not a word, and Mr. Lawrence found it impossible to go to sleep. If Joe had not been otherwise engaged, Laurie's behavior would have amused her, for a faint twinge, not of jealousy, but something like suspicion, caused the gentleman to stand aloof at first, and observe the newcomer with brotherly circumspection. But it did not last long. He got interested in spite of himself, and before he knew it, was drawn into the circle, for Mr. Barr talked well in this genial atmosphere, and did himself justice. He seldom spoke to Laurie, but he looked at him often, and a shadow would pass across his face as if regretting his own lost youth, as he watched a young man in his prime. Then his eyes would turn to Joe, so wistfully that she would have surely answered the mute inquiry if she had seen it. But Joe had her own eyes to take care of, and feeling that they could not be trusted, she prudently kept them on the little sock she was knitting, like a model maiden aunt. A stealthy glance now and then refreshed her like sips of fresh water from a dusty walk, for the sidelong peeps showed her several preposterous omens. Mr. Barr's face had lost the absent-minded expression, and looked all alive with interest in the present moment. Actually young and handsome, she thought, forgetting to compare him with Laurie, as she usually did with strange men, to their great detriment. Then he seemed quite inspired, though the burial customs of the ancients, to which the conversation had strayed, might not be considered an exhilarating topic. Joe quite glowed with triumph when Teddy got quenched in an argument, and thought to herself, as she watched her father's absorbed face, how would he enjoy having such a man as my professor to talk with every day? Lastly, Mr. Barr was dressed in a new suit of black, which made him look more like a gentleman than ever. His bushy hair had been cut and smoothly brushed, but didn't stay in order long, for in exciting moments he rumpled it up in a droll way he used to do, and Joey liked it rampantly erect better than flat, because she thought it gave his fine forehead a Jove-like aspect. Poor Joe, how did she glorify the plain man as she sat knitting away so quietly, yet letting nothing escape her, not even the fact that Mr. Barr actually had gold-sleeve buttons in his immaculate wristbands. Dear old fellow, he couldn't have got himself up with more care if he'd been going to a wooing, said Joe to herself, and then a sudden thought on the words made her blush so dreadfully that she had to drop her ball and go down after it to hide her face. The maneuver did not succeed as well as she expected, however, for though just in the act of setting fire to a funeral pyre, the professor dropped his torch, metaphorically speaking, and made a dive after the little blue ball. Of course they bumped their heads smartly together, saw stars, and both came up flushed and laughing, without the ball, to resume their seats, wishing they had not left them. Nobody knew where the evening went to, for Hannah skillfully abstracted the babies at an early hour, nodding like two rosy poppies, and Mr. Lawrence went home to rest. The others sat around the fire, talking away, utterly regardless of the lapse of time, till Meg, whose maternal was impressed by a firm conviction that Davy had tumbled out of bed, and Demi set his nightgown afire studying the structure of matches, made a move to go. "We must have our thing in the good old way, for we are all together again once more," said Joe, feeling that a good shout would be a safe and pleasant vent for the jubilant emotions of her soul. They were not all there, but no one found the word thoughtless or untrue, for Bess still seemed among them, a peaceful presence invisible, but dearer than ever, since death could not break the household league that love made dissoluble. The little chair stood in its old place, the tidy basket, with the bit of work she left unfinished when the needle grew so heavy, was still on its accustomed shelf. The beloved instrument, seldom touched now, had not been moved, and above it Beth's face, serene and smiling, as in the early days, looked down upon them, seeming to say, "Be happy, I am here." "Play something, Amy. Let them hear how much you have improved," said Laurie, with a pardonable pride in his promising pupil. But Amy whispered, with full eyes, as she twirled the faded stool, "Not tonight, dear. I can't show off tonight." But she did show something better than brilliancy or skill, for she sang Beth's song with a tender music in her voice which the best master could not have taught, and touched the listeners' hearts as a sweeter power than any other inspiration could have given her. The room was very still when the clear voice failed suddenly at the last line of Beth's favorite rhythm. It was hard to say, "Earth hath no sorrow that heaven cannot heal," and Amy leaned against her husband, who stood behind her, feeling that her welcome home was not quite perfect without Beth's kiss. "Now we must finish the Minion's song, for Mr. Bear sings that," said Joe, before the pause grew painful, and Mr. Barr cleared his throat with a gratified "Ahem," as he stepped into the corner where Joe stood, saying, "You will sing with me? We go excellently well together." A pleasing fiction, by the way, for Joe had no more idea of music than a grasshopper. But she would have consented if he had proposed to sing the whole opera, and warbled away, blissfully regardless of time and tune. It didn't much matter that Mr. Barr sang like a true German, heartily and well, and Joe soon subsided into a subdued hum, that she might listen to the mellow voice that seemed to sing for her alone. "Knowst thou the land where the citron blooms?" used to be the professor's favorite line, for "das Land" meant Germany to him, and now he seemed to dwell with particular warmth and melody upon the words. "There, oh there, might I with thee, oh my beloved, go," and one listener was so thrilled by the tender invitation that she longed to say she did know the land, and would joyfully depart thither whenever he liked. The song was considered a great success, and the singer retired covered with laurels. But a few minutes afterwards he forgot his manners entirely, and stared at Amy, putting on her bonnet, for she had been introduced simply as "my sister," and no one had called her by her new name since she came. He forgot himself still further when Laurie said, in his most gracious manner at parting, "My wife and I are very glad to meet you, sir. Please remember that there is always a welcome waiting for you over the way." Then the Professor thanked him so heartily, and looked so suddenly illuminated with satisfaction, that Lorry thought him the